starting with governance syllabus now. Governance is practically an extension of what is there in polity, but fortunately or unfortunately there's a lot of overlap with society. Okay, so I'll tell you where all it is overlapping. And governance is going to be one of those areas which will decide your fate, because it is very exhaustive. Even civil services, we don't deal with it to that extent actually. Now let's look at the syllabus. Unit 1 basically talks about, you can divide, they have divided it into 4 components. The first component here is governance. As in, you have to know about the meaning of governance. Then how did it evolve? Governance, the concept of governance evolution will be helpful for you in writing answers. Then we discuss about good governance. There is a lot of emphasis on good governance. They have talked about the characteristics. Please remember, good governance cannot be defined, because you can say whether a governance is good or bad on the basis of their performance. So good governance is a concept that can be measured, that cannot be defined. So there will be certain characteristics of good governance. Then we talk about models of good governance. Within this, a very important component is, remember this again, this area is dynamic. You need to correlate it with a lot of schemes and policies, and there will be broad based questions like, within this we talk about the biggest challenge to e-governance is digital illiteracy. So there will be aspects like this that we have to cover along with it. Whatever we discuss here, we have to discuss about challenges. A challenge for good governance will be corruption, but again corruption is given separately as a topic. So like this we have to discuss on governance. This is the first aspect that they have given on governance, and there can be questions directly only on schemes. Okay. The second aspect of unit 2 is governance at union level. In this, they basically talk about the executive structure. How does administration happen in India? We start with what we call as central secretariat. Okay, this is a larger body. Then we have what is called as cabinet secretariat. We have another office altogether called PMO. Okay, this is one part. The next part is we have ministries, departments. Now the first question is, do you think for all this setup there should be any constitutional basis? Is there a constitutional basis for forming ministries and departments? Which article? Yes, which article? 70? మీ ఇష్టం 75 నుండి 71 నుండి 80 వరకు చెప్పండి. For the number we have in class, ఒకటి అయిపోతుంది అది. Very bad. What is the content of the article? మళ్ళీ కొట్టుడు ఒక్కటే చెప్పండి. What does it say? Who has the power to form ministries? Is he independent in forming ministries? On the advice of ministries and departments are formed by the president. Why? He is the executive head. All business happens in the name of the so we have to first know the constitutional basis for all this. Then we have to know about their establishment, their constitution. How did they come into existence? Okay, their mandate. What will be the responsibility of PMO, cabinet secretariat, central secretariat? Who will head them, the structure that will work within this? And then most important is the relationship between all these. Okay, how will they work together? How will they assimilate into and work together as a unit is what we have to discuss with respect to this topic. The third unit lengthyga undi. The third unit that they gave is, they said the constitutional bodies, but they have given other bodies as well. They have listed the bodies: Finance Commission, CAG, UPSC, NHRC, NC, SC, ST, women, BC ledu, women, minorities varaku undi. Okay. దీనికి usually what do we read for prelims? We will read about their constitution, composition, powers, functions ఇవన్నీ చదువుతాం. ఇక్కడ అడిషనల్గా ఏం చదవాలంటే their working, analyze their contributions, challenges and what measures can be given to improve their working. This will be with respect to each body. Idi kaakunda, and also criticism, because criticism will help you understand where they are failing. For example, we say CAG only does post-mortem. Please write later. Please write later. CAG only does post-mortem. CAG does not have the power to stop any misuse, misappropriation. It can only dissect a misappropriation. So itlanti criticism kuda teluste, you will know where the challenges lie. Idi ఒక్కొక్క బాడీకి బ్రాడ్ బేస్డ్గా సివిల్స్లో అడిగిన క్వశ్చన్స్ ఏంటంటే, do you need so many bodies? And this has been asked a couple of times. You have a national commission for SC, ST, minorities, women separately. Do you need for, why can't we have one commission? Why should we have separate commissions? Argument for, argument against, and how do you conclude? So these things will come under bodies. The last aspect of unit 4 is parliamentary committees. Parliamentary committees is not mentioned under polity. It is mentioned under governance. Parliamentary committees law manaki, they have mentioned only 3 committees: PAC, Estimates Committee and Public Undertakings Committee. Most important will be, ఇప్పటి వరకు ప్యాక్ మీద సివిల్ సర్వీసెస్లో 3-4 times క్వశ్చన్స్ వచ్చినాయి. దట్ ఈస్ ద మోస్ట్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ థింగ్. బట్ అదర్వైజ్ ఐ వుడ్ ఆల్సో టాక్ అబౌట్ కమిటీస్ దేర్ ఆన్ ద హోల్. ఒకవేళ బ్రాడ్ బేస్డ్ క్వశ్చన్ ఇవ్వాలనుకుంటే దే విల్ ఆస్క్ యూ అబౌట్ ద సిగ్నిఫికెన్స్ ఆఫ్ కమిటీస్, వాట్ ఆర్ ది challenges that they are facing in order to fulfill their mandate, what is the way out, ivi kuda discuss cheyali, because one of the biggest challenges that Indian parliamentary system is facing today is its committees are not performing their mandate to the full extent. Where are the committees failing and how do we rectify it will be a broad based question. So idi manam we have to add it to parliamentary committees. This is unit 1. As I said, unit 1 is a little lengthy. Now moving on, unit 2 basically talks about, we finished with governance at union level, so it talks about governance at state and district levels. When you are talking about governance of district levels, we are basically talking about the analysis of working of local self governance. There are 3 major problems we talk about in local self-government. We call it as the 3 F's: finances, powers and all that. So in this we have to, when we talk about the working of LSG, we have to, though not directly mention, we have to refer to the Telangana State Panchayat Raj Act 2014. For example, we talk about devolution of powers and finances on Finance Commission. How do you know what is given in Telangana state without reading the Panchayat Raj Act? So I am going to take some extracts from it. Wherever it is relevant I am going to give you, but we have to refer to it if at all a question comes. There is no hard and fast rule that it will not be related to Telangana, because the topic says it is with respect to state and district levels, and administration with respect to districts changes from state to state. Does it change? Why does it change? Very good, because in the constitution, administration of district level units comes under voluntary provisions of part 9 and 9A. You remember compulsory provisions, voluntary provisions. Structure okkati compulsory. Functions, powers, finances will come under voluntary. That is the reason this emphasis should be on Telangana. Okay. Now what did they give? Firstly, governance at the state. We talk about what will be the role of secretariat, and we have for different departments we have what is called as directorates. We have to understand their mandate and their relationship. It already makes syllabus lo direct kitchen. Then we talk about district level law. We first talk about in district administration what are the different offices. Most important in district administration will be collector. The structure of district administration in Telangana. Then we discuss within the structure you have to discuss the role of collector. Role of collector is mentioned, but structure is not mentioned. But if you understand the structure, it becomes easy for you to write about district administration. Then they talked about institutions of rural and urban governance. What will be the institutions of rural and urban governance? What are the different institutions for rural administration, urban administration governance? What do we have? Here you have panchayats, gram panchayat, you have Zilla Parishad, you have Mandal Parishad. Ikkada extra aim jadutamante with respect to polity, we only look at the constitutional provisions. With respect to governance, we have to look at the working of the constitutional provisions. For example, most important will be what is the role of Gram Sabha in Telangana? What is the mandate of Gram Sabha in Telangana, which is given under the Telangana Panchayat Raj Act. So we have to discuss that. Urban governance law, you have different types of institutions under urban governance. Cantonment board is also a form of urban governance. Notified area committee will be there. Okay, you have Nagar Panchayats, which is mentioned in the constitution. You have municipal corporation. So like this, different types. How do they function? What is their mandate? Okay. Apart from this, there will be, for them together, we have district planning committees, metropolitan planning committees, which are mentioned in the constitution. Then again, there are certain challenges that we talk about with respect to urban and rural governance. The most important challenges is the number of institutions you have. For example, we have Greater Hyderabad Municipal Corporation. It is responsible for providing all civic amenities for people. But again, within that, you have Hyderabad Water Management Board separately, Hyderabad Sewage Management Board separately. By creating so many other institutions, are you weakening the working of the Greater Hyderabad Municipal Corporation? Such things will come under the challenges. So these things will come under the challenges for institutions. Then the next topic that they have given, they just mentioned and left it at that. Okay, what we are going to do is we are going to understand the meaning. Cooperatives are important because we had a major judgment by the Supreme Court last year. Significance, then part 9b, challenges, issues within cooperatives. When we talk about significance, we understand that we cannot do away with cooperatives, but they are not functioning effectively. What are the problems? How to what extent has the constitutional amendment addressed these problems? What else can be done will be discussed. The last part of this is development corporations. You have development corporations are different from commissions. Please remember, development corporations only focus on the development of a social group, as in they take measures through which they provide employment and other facilities to these groups. Now development corporations, apart from measures, we should know about their constitution. How did they come into existence? Under which ministry do they work? What is their mandate? Okay. Most important obviously will be what are the different measures that they take. You could talk about SC, ST, minorities. We have development corporations for different communities, and it is mentioned in your syllabus. So development corporations, we talk about this. The last topic is very, very broad. It talks about control over administration by executive, legislature, judiciary. ఇది చాలా పెద్ద టాపిక్ and majority of this will be based on constitutional provisions. Okay, so do you think we should first discuss the meaning of administration, because we have also included executive. So we all know that administration is finally the responsibility of the. So how is administration different from governance? Do you think administration and governance are same, or do you think there is a difference between the two? Which one could be a subset of which one? Administration is a subset of governance. Okay, so we have to start this topic by discussing the meaning of administration. Meaning as in what all comes under administration vis-a-vis governance. If you understand this, then you will be able to understand executive control over administration. Then we talk about how executive controls, legislature controls, judiciary. Judicial control lo em ostadi? Judicial reviews. You remember article 13 clause 3, which lists ordinance, bylaws. Who makes a bylaw? Bylaw is made by the, for the administration it is made by the administrators. We also talk about judicial activism. Okay, here we talk about things like question hour. Finally, the responsibility of administration will be on the political executive. But who carries the administration? It will be carried out by the permanent executive. Answerability will be on the political executive. Executive, within executive there will be internal controls. Internal controls like you will have, control can be ensured through personal management. What is personal management? Promotions, transfers. Okay, you have annual reports, performance reports, avanni personal management lo vastayi. So this topic we are going to, it is going to be a combination of the constitutional provisions. We also have to give examples of certain measures that are taken by the government for this control. This is the second topic under unit 2, the last topic under unit 2. Now unit 3 nundi there will be a lot of overlap with your society. Ikkad nundi it is going to purely overlap with society. So you know, after this perhaps what I am going to do is, when I take the classes I am going to integrate society and this together. Separate ga teach cheyadam konni areas ki kashtam, because unit 3 basically talks about programs. Though it talks about local self-governance or rural administration, it covers broader areas. Institutions working for development of urban and rural areas. This is what is given broadly. Now under this, the first topic that they have given is people-centered participatory development. What do you mean by people-centered participatory development? If you don't understand that, you will not be able to write on it. So what do you mean by this? People-centered participatory development. Amma? Can you be a little elaborate, please? People-centered. Gram Sabha, very good. Gram Sabha is an example for people-centered participatory development. Yes. Democracy is participatory development. People-centered is where people are, you focus on the real needs of people, where people are able to communicate what they want and take a decision with regard to attaining these. So people-centered participatory development, we talk about real needs, but the focus will be on Gram Sabha. Then we talk about poverty alleviation programs is mentioned. Now I'll tell you, poverty is a topic which is mentioned for you in economy, mentioned for you in society as well as governance. So poverty here I am going to talk from a very broad perspective. We are first going to discuss about poverty as a social problem. not as an economic problem. I am not getting into the measures of poverty and all that because that comes under economy, but I'll definitely have to talk about the social impact of poverty. So poverty, social impact, evolution of poverty alleviation programs, where do we stand today, what are the schemes that are there as on date, and what are the challenges and measures. Okay, ఇది ఒకటి. తర్వాత they spoke about the next topic that they gave is women empowerment. Women empowerment is a topic that is exhaustively covered under society. So I will not be taking up this topic under governance because it will be exhaustively covered under society. Gender sensitization kuda undi unit 5 lo, adi kuda I will just give the definition, and the rest of it will anyways be covered in society, because you know under this we have to discuss first status of women in India, why are they vulnerable, vulnerability of women, then we have to discuss about the issues related to women, because unless you discuss the issues and remove them, you cannot talk about empowerment. Then you talk about the policy of the government with respect to women, then you talk about the various laws, schemes and missions. All this will come under society. Okay, so this overlaps with society. Even if you are preparing, please remember this overlaps with society. The last is inclusive growth. Inclusive growth is again a broad based topic. It also comes under environment and development. Inclusive growth, we first need to know the meaning of both inclusion as well as exclusion. And when you talk about exclusion, you again talk about vulnerable groups in India. This again comes under society, groups. Okay, then we have to talk about the different sections, what are their problems, how are they addressed by the government. This again will be covered under these two topics, totally overlap with society. The third topic we have is rights. Last topic is related to three developmental sectors have been mentioned. One is health, the other is food security. 99% a question that you can expect, in fact essay that you can expect is education. Education, mark my words, you can expect an essay. Now on this, what do you study? You first need to know about the constitutional provisions. Health is a subject in which list? Okay, education is a subject in which list? Daggara modalkoni, we need to know what are the provisions in DPSP which are related to. Do we have any provisions related to health, food security, education? We have to know them. They should be on your fingertips. And when you are writing answer, one mention of that can add a half a mark for you in your answer. So first constitutional provisions. Then do we have any laws related to these? Like the National Food Security Act, the Right to Education Act. Then do we have any National Health Policy is there, National Nutrition Mission, then you have the education policies. Aithe when we discuss the policies, when we have 2-3 policies, we should also discuss the improvisations through these policies. For example, what is the difference between the education policy that has recently come and the previous education policy? That is where you can highlight the effectiveness of the current education policy. So policies, then do we have schemes and missions? Malli meeru syllabus lo cross verify cheskondi, all this comes under okay, unit 5 of society. This is covered. Meer oksa chuskunte meeku telustundi. So this is unit 3. Now moving on to unit 4. Unit 4 is actually given under social justice for civil services. Unit 4 basically has these topics. It talks about a debate on development. How do you ensure development and development process? So first thing that we have to do is we have to define what is development. What do you mean by the word development and what do you mean by the word development process. A proper definition is required. After this, they have talked about state and provision of services. I don't know how many of you are aware, but this comes in ethics for civil services. There is an Essential Services Act. Okay, time bound delivery of goods and services act. Then you have citizens charter. Avanni state and provision of services kindi kostundi. Then you have the debate of state and market. Now why do you enter into this and how is it related to development? Unless your market functions properly, unless there is a flow of money into the market and from the market, you will not have development. Is it true? In order to do that, what happens is state can provide for interventions in the market. State can. What is the difference between these two terms? Anybody? I am talking about regulation of market and intervention into market. What? Any example that you can give? COVID time, you have a lot of examples. What you said is right. COVID time, you had examples for this. What else? Interventions by the government to stabilize the market, basically. What interventions did the government take? Infusion of capital. What else? What were the different schemes that were announced during COVID? Yeah, come on. What else apart from that? Yes, there were many measures. Atmanirbhar Bharat, part of it. You remember PM Swabi. Yes, all that would come under interventions. Regulation is your bodies that are responsible for controlling, for keeping a vigil on this. So state and market debate, we have to talk about these two and we have to relate to the idea of development. And you have again constitutional provisions with regard to this, especially in directive principles of state policy. If I have to be more precise, it is 39. What does it say? It's not. C is land resource, land reforms. What is B? Distribution of goods for common good. And it talks about avoiding concentration of means of production. So under this whole debate comes. Okay. The third part that they talk about is involvement of, and they have given a big list. They talk about community-based organizations, NGOs, self-help groups, charities, public-private partnership and CSR. Deeniki, what do we need to read? We should first know the meaning, the definition for each of this. Each are different. We have to define. Then do you think we have any laws or regulations with respect to these NGOs? Yes. So the laws that are there with respect to them. Any other measures by the government for this? Guidelines, measures, rules. And you have to collect examples. This is an area where you need to give a lot of examples as to how effectively they are contributing to development. An important part of this would be what are the challenges that these face. This could be with respect to each of these. Common ga em adugutarante, why do we need all this when we already have a government and a constitution which says that there should be a welfare state? Did you get my question? You have government, you have all structure in place, you have a constitution that directs the government to establish a welfare state. Then why do you need a CBO? Why do you need an NGO? Why a self-help group? What is the relevance? A significance law, you will get all that. Okay, so this is about debate on development and development process. The last unit again is a very broad unit because it overlaps with ethics in civil services. This talks about, stop talking please, ethics and values in administration. This topic itself is very lengthy. It almost covers a couple of units in ethics in civil services. Basically we have to talk about Nolan committee specified values. We talk about second ARC. Within this we cover values like neutrality of civil services, committed bureaucracy, commitment to public services we say, committed bureaucracy. These values will also define the relationship between politician and bureaucrats. Politicians and bureaucrats. So idanta oka part aitadi, and bureaucrats. And again here we talk about constitutional provisions with respect to civil services. We talk about the code of conduct. There is something called as code of ethics and code of conduct. Code of ethics will come under, these two will come under code of ethics. Code of conduct is the civil services rules that we have that talk about how your relationship with politicians and bureaucrats should be. So idanta ethics based, this will be one part. Meeku transparency and accountability separate ga mention chesaru, but that also comes under the core values of administration. Then the second part of it, they talked about corruption. And corruption, please remember, is also given as a social problem in India. So you have to talk about the social impact. Here I am going to comprehensively cover corruption, including the meaning, what are the causes, consequences. We had a committee on corruption, the S.K. Santanam committee. We are going to discuss briefly about the committee. Then we have to talk about the various laws, agencies that have been put in place to address corruption. Towards the end, the challenges, because an essay that can be asked with respect to justice is corruption and good governance. How corruption and good governance affect each other, there can be an essay. In this they again mentioned, in Lokpal is mentioned here, RTI is mentioned here, okay, CVC is mentioned here. So all these would come under laws, agencies. Unit 5, broadly two categories. One is we deal with ethics and values in administration. The second will be corruption as a whole topic, where we talk about the various aspects of corruption. This is the 5th unit. So these are the 5 units that you have in governance. Please make a note.